Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about something every homeowner or aspiring homeowner has to go through: the property valuation. It's that nail-biting moment when the bank decides what your dream home is actually worth. So let's pull back the curtain and see exactly how they do it. So, how does a bank really figure this out? It's a huge question, right? You've found a place, you've agreed on a price, but then the bank steps in with their own number. It can feel like this big, mysterious process, almost like a black box. But trust me, it's not random. It's all about one thing: managing their risk. Look, if you've heard all this jargon being thrown around, things like AVM, desktop valuation, short form, and your head starts to spin, you are so not alone. So today, we're going to ditch the jargon. We're going to break it all down into simple, plain English so you feel totally in control and understand what's going on with your biggest investment.
All right, let's dive in. We're going to start with what I call valuations from a distance. These are the quick checks. The bank doesn't even have to leave their office for these. Think of them as the first speedy once-over.
Okay, so with these remote valuations, it really comes down to one big difference. Is it a computer doing the work or a person? On one hand, you've got the AVM, that's the Automated Valuation Model, which is purely driven by algorithms. And on the other, you have the desktop valuation, where an actual human expert gets involved, even though they're still doing it all remotely. We'll start with the AVM. So, the AVM. You can think of it as a super smart computer program. It just gobbles up a ton of public data. We're talking past sales in the area, property tax records, you name it. And then almost instantly, it spits out an estimated value. It's incredibly fast, it's cheap for the bank, and it's often their very first step. But, and this is a huge but, the AVM has a major blind spot. It has no eyes. It's just a computer. So while it's perfect for really straightforward, low-risk loans, say a simple refinance, it has no idea that you just spent a fortune on a brand new kitchen. It also can't see any problems, like a crack in the foundation. It only sees the numbers, not the reality of the house. Okay, so that brings us to the next step up the ladder: the desktop valuation. Now, this is a pretty big leap because you've got a real licensed valuer in the picture. The key thing to remember is they're still not physically visiting your house, but they are using their professional brainpower and a bunch of other data sources, all from their desk. And with this method, the valuer is doing some real detective work. They're digging through real estate data, looking at what similar homes nearby, the comps, have sold for. They might even pull up satellite images or do a virtual walk-around on Google Street View. It's a solid choice for your typical house in a neighborhood with lots of recent sales. But, you guessed it, the big limitation is still there. Nobody has actually set foot inside the property. So what happens when the computer model isn't enough, and even a remote review won't cut it? What happens when the bank needs to be absolutely certain about the value? Well, that's when they send someone out. We're moving on to the on-site inspections, where boots literally hit the ground. Now, for most people buying a home, this next one is the one you're going to experience. It's called the short-form valuation, and it's pretty much the industry standard. This is where a licensed valuer actually comes to the property, has a good look around, and then fills out a standard report for the lender. And the process here is really straightforward. The valuer shows up, they walk through the house, they measure rooms, they check out the overall condition and layout, and they take a bunch of photos. Then they take all that first-hand info and combine it with market data on recent sales in the area to come up with that final all-important number. And finally, we get to the big one: the heavyweight champion of valuations. This is the long-form valuation. It's the most comprehensive, the most detailed, and yeah, the most expensive option out there. We're not just talking about an inspection here. This is a full-blown investigation. So you can really see the difference, can't you? Short form is your go-to for a standard residential house. But when things get complicated, like for a commercial property, a really unique or high-value home, or maybe a block of apartments, the bank is going to want the long form. And what they get back isn't just a form with a number on it. It's a super detailed report that explains exactly how and why the valuer arrived at that figure. Okay, so AVM, desktop, short form, long form. We've covered the 4 types, but the real question is, what does all of this mean for you? How does it affect your loan application? This, right here, is where you can start to read between the lines. And here it is. This is the absolute key to understanding the whole thing. The type of valuation the bank chooses, it tells you everything about how much risk they think is involved.
If they just run a quick AVM, they're feeling pretty confident. But if they order a full-long form, well, that tells you they need a whole lot more convincing. So just remember that number, 4. There are 4 different levels of scrutiny the bank can use, and each one directly corresponds to how risky they feel the loan is. And you can literally see how it escalates. You start at the bottom with the super low-touch AVM. Then you move up to the desktop review. And then you get to the much more hands-on short form. As the risk goes up, the level of detail the bank demands goes up right along with it. It's basically a risk ladder. All right, let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. The biggest thing to remember is that evaluation isn't just one thing. It's a whole spectrum of options. And the specific method the bank picks tells you a story about how they see your property and your loan. Now you know how to read that story, from a simple computer check all the way to a full on-site inspection. So I want to leave you with this. The next time you're going for a loan and someone says the word valuation, you're not going to be sitting there in the dark. You're going to be empowered. You'll know what's happening. So my question to you is, what's the first thing you're going to ask?